that we should get into it. I know it's a transition and it's sleep regression.
Sure.
And how does it work? Oh yeah, like, and then we'll go back. But
Sure.
for sleep training, what are your philosophies? And or is there anything you recommend people read?
Cry It Out, 12 by 12. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, we started with list. So we can start with Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are we talking about sleep regression or philosophy?
Or training. Do you want to do training or regression?
Yeah, it was all for regression. So I guess let's start with sleep regression because that helps people with older babies.
So what I
issues that
so there's always going to be some sort of sleep disturbance, whether it's a developmental milestone, whether it's an illness, whether it's travel. There's always things happening. Baby learns to walk, or there's teeth coming in. But if a baby knows how to fall asleep and stay asleep on their own, then it'll be easier to go through these challenges. And babies will wake up and babies will need you, and you always attend to them if they need you. But at some point, sleep is to them is more important, and if they know how to put themselves back to sleep, then it'll be easier for them to go through these transitions. So, if you travel somewhere and they get a little wonky during the trip, they get back home and they're like back in their routine, they'll know how to get back to it really easily. Whereas like if there's a baby that doesn't really know how to sleep on their own, it's going to be a much harder transition. So I always say, try to teach them how to handle sleep on a daily basis, and then they'll be able to handle any of these challenges along the way a little bit easier than other babies.
So when I said that Sarah came to me for help, it was because her son was waking up for her to feed at 2 months.
I don't remember. No, I don't mind at all, but I literally don't remember.
Jonah would wake up and you thought it was because you wanted to breastfeed and you were used to breastfeeding him, so you were like, I maybe you should try sending my husband, but you couldn't. It was hard for you to handle.
Yeah, so personally I had an experience where I nursed my son until he was 15 months. So he was really attached to my boob, and I just didn't know how to break it. And he's a very strong-headed, strong-willed baby. And so when he wanted something, it was hard to say no. And so I had to just do a lot and go through many different obstacles to figure out what was happening and how to fix it. And that's how I got into all of this. But yeah, it was really challenging, and I had to cut that and teach him how to fall asleep on his own, and he finally did that. But for a long time, he was falling asleep on top of me, and I was placing him in the crib, and then every time he would wake up, he needed me again. And so that's what I said before about it's very important teaching them to fall asleep on their own, so they don't need you to put them back to sleep 20 times in the morning. He wasn't ready. But he would wake up once or twice, but I knew he wasn't hungry. I knew he didn't need to eat. It was just this habit that he had formed where he needed me, and it wasn't good for him or me because his sleep was getting interrupted, which is not a good thing, and my sleep was interrupted as well. So yeah, that's how we figured it out.
So how did you figure it out? You just let him cry?
So personally, I went through a lot of different sleep strategies with him, where I was trying one thing and then I tried something else, and I was so inconsistent. I was so all over the place, and that's why it took me so long to be like, okay, this is what I need to do to get him back on track. And started reading a lot and getting really into this, and I tried a few different things, and nothing worked until I knew what I had to do with my son, which was let him cry it out for a few nights.
And that's what I told you. But she's like, I can't.
So it was really hard for me.
I realized how hard.
Yeah, and I wanted to do a check and console method where you go in and check on them, and then you leave, and then you try again, and you leave, and you keep increasing the intervals that you go in to check on them. And that actually made him more upset. He was so angry when I would come in. He would get mad at me. He was like, why the hell are you in here? I don't want you in here. He was just angry. If you're going to leave, why are you coming in here? He didn't want me to soothe him. He didn't want me to calm him down. And I realized there are babies that do okay with that, and he just didn't want to see me. So that's when I had to, pull off the Band-Aid and just do what I had to do. And it's fine, and now he's a great sleeper, and I'm no longer this, anxious mom of a non-sleeping baby. But I went through a lot to figure it out, and now with my 4-month-old, I set her on the right track from the start, so I never really had to sleep train her. She sort of did it by herself because I set the right habits, and she sleeps the night, she sleeps 12 hours, she takes 3 naps in the day, and she's like on a really good schedule, and I think it's because this time I knew what I was doing and I knew how to put her on that path. And I know now what to do to not let it happen again. So that was my experience.
We want to know those tips, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So,
or I guess, can you speak to, so that's amazing, but like, can you speak to what you do if like you don't form habits, yet you still experience sleep regression?
That was me, sort of. Yeah, so I'm 4 months old, and I obviously now know what I'm doing. So I was doing everything which I thought was right, putting her down a week, setting all the good habits, and she was always falling asleep on her own. So that was great. The problem was she was doing well, and then about 3 months, she regressed and started waking up minimally twice up to 4 times in the night. So I've been through this, and I'm still kind of in it, but it's a week ago, so I just had to, I did like a Berber type of method, so sort of what Sarah was just talking about. So you go, you check on them, you put them down a week, you set a timer for 10 minutes, you go back, if they're still crying, you go back 10 minutes, you comfort them, and actually it really worked well for my daughter. Like, she didn't get more amped up. She's 4 months. So she actually
Also depends on their age.
yeah, she responded fine to it. And then it was quick, but the middle of the night wake-ups were probably the hardest. And I did extinction for those because I just felt like one, exhausted. The thought of getting up out of bed, doing the time track in the middle of the night. But it was quick. I mean, it was, I think, the longest she cried was probably 20 minutes. But I knew she was fine. I knew she was fed. I got cleared from my pediatrician that she was eating enough, gaining enough weight, which is always what I recommend clients to do before they do any sort of sleep training or taking away night feeds. Always speak to your doctor first. Because as a sleep consultant, I sleep train with feeds too. So like if people are like, my pediatrician still says the baby needs to eat in the middle of the night, I say that's fine. We can still sleep train and feed in the middle of the night. That's no problem. So don't think that the two are 100% related. They can coexist. So keep that in mind. But yeah, so it took about 5 weeks for everything to come together. It's still not perfect. I mean, she's 4 months. But she's sleeping now 11 to 12 hours at night on average, which is great. Yeah, so, I mean, like, it works. Like, it's, and it's painful, like you said, like, hearing her cry. I mean, it's not fun, even for 10 minutes. Like, it's terrible. I mean, the only saving grace is that when I started this during bedtime, I was putting my 2.5-year-old to bed, and I was in her room reading stories, so I couldn't hear it as much, and quite frankly, just don't have as many hands to like cater to it. So it actually helped, because sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go check on her now. Like, oh, I don't hear her anymore. So yeah, but
so
yeah,
they sleep separately.
they do.
They sleep
And
separately.
the 2-year-old never had a regression.
She did not. She was a very bad napper in the beginning, so I had to tweak her nap schedule around 5 months. But she slept through the night on her own at like 8 weeks. I did nothing. So you might get lucky. I mean, you really might. Yeah, I mean, like I would say the only thing I did with her is I had a consistent bedtime of 7 o'clock, and I put her down at 7 every night. I didn't know babies really slept that early until I did like a mom's group. So it's like, yeah, babies sleep like 7. I didn't really know that. So I started, okay, that's gonna be my bedtime, and like that started working. She started waking up less and less. Like, dropped feeds on her own, and it happened.
So what are their bedtimes now?
The 4-month-old's like 6:30, 6:45, and this.
Wait, when to when? When do they go to sleep and when do they wake up?
She wakes up around anywhere between 6 and 7.
Okay, and how about the older one?
She goes about at 7:30. Sometimes she doesn't fall asleep till 8:15. Depends on her nap, which is a whole other story. And she's up around 7:30. Yeah.
Well, just on this topic, like, do you want to share what you are experiencing to see what the responses could be in terms of like, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I think another question is, how do you deal with sleep regressions when there are 2 in the same room? There's a toddler and a baby in the same room. How do you deal with that? And some parents were asking about that. What would you recommend?
Yeah.
For people who might not have two separate.
I actually did deal with that once, and what I suggested to the parent was put one of the babies in the room with you until they're sleep trained.
The better sleeper. Take the better sleeper in there.
Exactly. Until whichever one is sleep trained. So like separate them, put one in your room, really whichever one, and then sleep train the bad sleeper, and once the bad sleeper is sleep trained, you can put the other one back in the room. So that's what I would do.
Okay, interesting.
So don't keep them together because they're going to wake each other up and it's going to get messy. So you want to separate them during that process and then put it back together once they're sleeping around.
And so during those sleep regressions, do you do like 2 sound machines? Do you do like, how do you deal with, because there are going to be sleep regressions coming up no matter what, right?
Well, I think like what I'm trying to get at is like, what if you're like a perfect sleeper and you said me for 2 months? Like or you're like the type that's like, I never have to do sleep training, I never have to do try it out, like I dodged that bullet and suddenly, like at 15 months, like, yeah, you don't have the tools or the strength to like try it out because you never had to do it.
Yeah, 15 months is a hard age to try it out.
Yeah, I'm just like, not talking about myself at all, but
yeah, you have to sort of retrain them, and if you never had to train them, then you know that they can do it. They can go back to sleep on their own. They've done it before, so they will be able to do it. You just have to put them in the right direction. So, maybe a few nights that you don't really know what to do, and you make it consistent, and you go into the room, and you go back out, and you're like a little bit all over the place, and then you realize like, okay, I need to organize this. I need to be consistent. I need to figure out what's going on and stick. If you need to sleep train, then maybe find like one sort of a method or a strategy that works for you. Be very consistent in that, and then your baby will go back. It's just like making sure to put the right, set them on the right path and not start introducing all these bad habits where you're going in and then you're taking them out, and then there's like all this mess where there's no consistency then, and they go down a bad rabbit hole. So I think it's about just like
entrusting your baby no matter the age.
Yeah, and they'll get back on track. There are things that happen, but they will get back if they have favorite sleepers.
I mean, there are so many questions here. I think that we need like 5 more nights worth of staying sane, go the F to sleep. I'm so overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff here.
So can we say, like, we talked about like bedtime sleeping. Do you have tips for naps? You said that's a whole other story, and
totally a whole other story. Okay, so
I feel like there's a lot of.
What do you do when your child just wants to play in the crib and not nap? Okay, that's one question. My 4-month-old hates to nap. He'll only nap 40 to 60 minutes.
I feel like a nap thing.
How old? Yeah. This one's 4 months old. But like, even what about toddlers? There are some toddlers who will nap 2 to 3 hours, and there's some that will only sleep 30 minutes. What do you do? How?
So, I guess there's so many pieces to the puzzle here.
Right.
Like, night sleep affects day sleep affects night sleep, so it all sort of goes together. So it's hard to be like, oh, if this is the issue, you have to look at it as a whole picture, but number one, maybe the nap times are not at the right times. Like, there are biological times when your baby should be sleeping.
Okay, what are those?
On their age.
Oh my goodness. Can we go through each of the ages?
Sure.
Okay.
And also for a 4-month-old, they're not mature enough to be able to stretch out their naps that long just yet. So with time and patience, they will begin to stretch it out. But it's normal for 4-month-olds to sleep like 40 minutes.
Yeah, there was a mom that was like, but I'm so jealous of my mom friends whose baby sleep 2 hours and her baby slept 3 45-minute naps instead of like the ones that have like a 2 hour. And so if you stop like fighting it, it kind of can evolve, right?
So how do you figure out schedules? I mean, even from day one, how do you figure out that schedule? Had I not had a baby nurse, I would have not known what the F to do, like when to put my baby down, when to feed them. So how do you know what the schedule should be from the get-go?
I wanted to add on that because I have had 70 babies I took care of them, and I've seen them nap, good nappers, bad nappers, and I just realized that they will have like a sleep cycle, sometimes 40, sometimes 50, and then they will go back to light sleep. So if there's like a stimulus that would wake them, they would wake up. But then if not, and they're good, self-soothers, they can go back to sleep on their own and complete the 2 hours, 2 hours and a half nap. Now, I've had like my baby right now is like, she's just strong-willed. She would nap for 40 minutes. So the schedule, just to give you an idea. So like the schedule is like 11 o'clock feeding, 11 a.m. feeding. And then after that 1.5 hours, we put her down. So that's 12:30. And she'll sleep. And then 40 minutes later, on the dot, she'd wake up. So we try to put her back to sleep. We shush her, we give passy. And then she just doesn't want to nap. And so we realized that she just needed one nap of 40 minutes. And then she's up. And then the next feeding would be 3 o'clock p.m. because she's into every 4 hours feeding. So she cuts her nap into two. So she'd sleep for 40 minutes. She will be awake and playtime for 40 minutes. And then try to put her back to sleep again for nap for another 40 minutes a day. And then when she wakes up, that's the next feeding. So there are babies. I've had so many babies who were like that they couldn't stretch, really have to have that good chunk of sleep because they're not very good sleep. They can't soothe themselves back to sleep. So if they are ready to play, then play with them. Take that time to bond with them, and they will get tired. Usually, what I do with a 4-month-old, in between naps, she'd wake up. We'll do tummy time. We'll do lots of floor time, so the baby will get tired, and the baby will just discover her body, herself. And the more movement she does, the more she releases gas on her own. Because at that point, babies are so gassy. And, we have to help them, massage so that they can pass gas. But if they can move a lot on their own, they can find a more, most comfortable position for them when they sleep. So they can easily go back to sleep, or they can easily pass gas. So those things, you just have to read the cues of your babies, because what's the point of trying to put the baby down to nap again if the baby is not really into napping? So,
and I think it's safe to say that it's different for different ages, and that's why we wanted to introduce them to you guys, so that if you have specific questions, you can go to them as a resource. I know that at 3 months old, it might be also feedings, maybe they're feeding too